All right, so if you're listening, you're probably someone who gets excited about the cutting edge of gaming tech. The kind of experiences that aren't just quick matches, but these huge, almost overwhelming spectacles. And you've likely been keeping close eye on what the new consoles, like the PS5, can actually pull off. We got a whole stack of sources from you focusing on maybe the biggest release in that vein this year.
That's exactly right. The listener wants us to really dig into the Battlefield 6 Standard Edition, specifically for the PS5. And our mission today, it's pretty clear. Figure out what really makes this the thinking player's alternative to Call of Duty. And maybe more importantly, how did Dicey actually use the PS5's power to get to that massive scale?
Okay, yeah, let's get into that. Looking through these reviews, the overall feeling is, well, it's pretty consistent. Dicey delivered a game that just thrives on that huge spectacle, that sense of scale. Now, there are definitely some rough edges, and we'll absolutely talk about those later. But the core verdict we're seeing, it's landing at a solid 8 out of 10. That definitely says the ambition paid off, mostly.
Well, success in Battlefield, historically, it always comes down to a few key things, right? You need those enormous maps. You need that mix of infantry and vehicles combined arms. And critically, you need tactical depth. It can't just be chaos. And these sources, they're saying Battlefield 6 doesn't just nod to that identity. It basically builds the whole experience around trying to manage that immense chaos through, well, really organized teamwork. It's not optional.
And managing chaos on that level, that takes serious horsepower. Which brings us straight to the PlayStation 5. The reviews keep using words like vast, unprecedented density. And we're not just talking prettier textures here, are we? It sounds like it's about the actual geometry, the sheer number of things happening at once.
Exactly. When you ask how the PS5 enhances it, it's way beyond just looking nicer. It's the tech that actually enables that jump to 128 players. That's the big number here. People talk about the graphics card, but the PS5's custom I/O, its data throughput, that's kind of the unsung hero. Think about it. It has to load detailed assets for 128 different players, plus all their vehicles, all the destructible bits, the physics, and it has to do it instantly without the frame rate just tanking. The leap isn't just smoothness. It's the raw calculation power needed to make 128 players feel like they're interacting in a real space.
That's a really important point. It's not just window dressing, it's enabling the core design. And the sources seem to agree the PS5's SSD, its impact is functional, not just cosmetic. Especially for the speed of playing. Load times are apparently really, really short. Why is that so vital for this kind of game loop?
Because in a game where you die a lot, and believe me, 128 players means you will die a lot. Getting back into the action quickly is everything. It keeps the pace up, keeps the pressure on. If you had those old, long load times from previous consoles, the whole momentum would just die between spawns. The reviews mention dropping back in, like seconds after dying or a match ending. That fundamentally changes how these huge battles feel. You're spending less time staring at a loading screen and more time actually, fighting.
Okay, and sticking with that scale, this is where it gets really interesting for me. The dynamic chaos. The environment itself isn't static. The sources talk about weather, like sudden sandstorms, even tornadoes that actually change how you play. Does that stuff ever feel like just a gimmick, though? Like just a cool visual? Or does it force players to change strategy?
No, it's definitely the latter. And that's maybe what makes this analysis deeper than a quick review. These aren't just pretty background effects. They're physics-based things you have to react to. A tornado rips through your objective. Your squad has to reposition. Maybe abandon good cover entirely. A sandstorm rolls in. Visibility drops to near zero. Suddenly, long-range weapons are useless, and it's all close-quarters chaos. Snipers are scrambling. It forces you to make decisions right there in the moment. That's what separates the thinking player from someone just reacting.
And on the city maps, the descriptions say they're alive with destruction. How deep does that destruction go this time? Are we talking chipping away at cover, or can you actually level buildings and change the layout?
We're talking significant changes. Maybe not every single building can be flattened to dust, but the reviews highlight that key structures, walls, floors, they can be destroyed. You can blow open new sight lines, collapse cover someone was relying on, and that feeds right back into that classic Battlefield feeling. The map isn't fixed. What was a safe spot 1 minute is a pile of rubble the next. You constantly have to reassess based on what the tanks and explosives are doing.
Wow, okay. That sounds incredibly hectic. Which kind of brings us to the actual gameplay, the minute-to-minute feel. The review mentions it's fast-paced, sure, but also distinctly methodical. That seems like a contradiction almost. How does a 1-to-8 player match, which sounds like pure anarchy, actually encourage something other than just running and gunning like crazy?
Yeah, it seems counterintuitive. But the game pushes back against that run-and-gun instinct. How? Mostly by making individual actions more consequential, and by really, really rewarding squads that stick together. In some shooters, one amazing player can basically carry a team. Here, not so much. The time to kill is balanced so that even if you win a one-on-one fight, you're probably weak and exposed to the next enemy. The whole system kind of discourages those lone wolf antics, as the review puts it. You need your squad mates, especially revives from the support players, dying and having to wait for a long spawn. That's a tactical loss. Winning means holding ground together using that mix of roles.
Right, and that reworked class system plays a big part in that structure, doesn't it? The reviews often mention this rework that blends freedom with structure, but that sounds a bit vague. Can you maybe break down what the old system was like and what freedoms and limitations this new one actually has?
Absolutely. So traditionally, Battlefield had 4 very rigid classes: Assault, Medic, or Support, Engineer, Recon. Your class choice dictated everything: your main weapon type, your gadgets, your role. Very defined. This new system introduces specialists. Think unique characters with names and looks, but they still fit into those 4 basic roles.
Okay, so where does the freedom part come in?
The freedom is mainly in weapon proficiency and some secondary gadgets. So an engineer specialist whose main job is anti-vehicle could technically choose to carry a sniper rifle now. That wasn't possible before. However, and this is the crucial structure part, the most vital gadgets, they're still locked to those core roles. Things like the medic's healing tools, the engineer's rocket launcher, the recon spotting gear. Only that role gets the best version. So you can't just have a squad of, say, 5 snipers who are all technically different specialists. You'd lack healing, you'd lack anti-tank, you'd fail. It forces you to bring a balanced toolkit to succeed, even with the extra weapon flexibility.
Ah, okay, that makes more sense. Freedom in how you fight moment to moment, but still needing that strategic team composition. Now let's talk shooting, gunplay. The sources really emphasize it feels grounded, controlled, weighty. What makes the shooting feel distinct, especially compared to maybe more arcadey competitors?
It really comes down to the mechanics, the fine details. Recoil isn't just a random spray. Each weapon has distinct patterns you can learn and master with practice. You can't just hold the trigger down and hope. And honestly, the sound design plays a huge role here. Weapons have this real punch, this visceral kick in the audio. Plus, the visual feedback, muzzle flash, screen shake, it connects you to the weapon. It feels cinematic, definitely. But the key is you still have full control. It requires skill to manage that power, that weight.
And that feeling of weight extends to the vehicles too, right?
Yeah.
That combined arms strategy has always been Battlefield's signature. They aren't just taxis, they're like mobile forts, force multipliers.
Oh, absolutely essential. They're core strategic pieces on the board. The review mentions mastering that sort of rock, paper, scissors game between infantry, armor, and air power is almost a separate skill tree. Tanks feel heavy, they rumble, they interact with the terrain convincingly, jets scream overhead, forcing people to react with anti-air, and even the basic transport vehicles are vital. Getting squads quickly to objectives is crucial for holding points. It adds strategic layers that you just don't get in infantry-only games.
Okay, let's shift gears slightly to content. What do you actually get with this standard edition at launch? The sources mention a solid lineup of maps, some big cityscapes needing close fighting, others wide open for tanks and snipers.
Yeah, the map variety seems decent, definitely leaning into that scale. And fans will be glad the big classic modes are back. Conquest, that's the sandbox capture the flags mode, and Breakthrough, which is more like a focused, linear assault pushing through sectors. So the large-scale stuff is there, though the reviews do consistently bring up one point. While there are some smaller modes, there's a bit of a craving for more maps designed specifically for tighter, infantry-only combat, without the huge vehicle focus everywhere.
And we should probably clarify the single-player aspect. The sources are pretty blunt.
Yeah.
There's no big, robust story campaign like in some older Battlefields. The single-player stuff is more like tech demos, showcasing the engine. Is that a fair assessment?
That seems to be the consensus, yeah. It's a strategic choice they made. It confirms that the absolute heart of this Battlefield is the multiplayer. They clearly decided to pour, well, pretty much all their resources into making that large-scale multiplayer experience as immersive and dynamic as possible. Deep narrative just wasn't the goal here. High-fidelity digital warfare was.
And judging by the reviews, that focus really pays off in the immersion factor. Visually, everyone seems blown away. Explosions everywhere, realistic lighting, detailed character models. It sounds like a real feast for the eyes.
It does. But the audio design, that might be even more critical for immersion and maybe gets less attention. The reviews really hammer this point. Playing with a good headset isn't just nice, it's almost required for tactical awareness. Hearing the whiz of bullets go past your ear, knowing which direction they came from. Or the rumble of a tank getting closer, hearing the artillery warnings. That directional audio gives you life-saving information. The ground shaking isn't just for effect. It makes the world feel tangible, dangerous.
Okay, but now we have to pivot. The reality check. Because no launch this big is ever perfect. Right? Despite that strong 810 score, the reviews are pretty honest about the downsides, the trade-offs. Does the sheer ambition of it all kind of excuse the areas where it lacks polish?
Well, that's the million-dollar question the sources wrestle with, isn't it? The technical achievement is impressive, no doubt, but it does come with baggage. Noticeable bugs, glitches, things that definitely break the immersion. The reviews specifically mention texture pop-in, like details loading in late right in front of you, and sometimes weird hit registration, where you swear you hit the target, but the game doesn't seem to agree. In a precision shooter, that's frustrating.
Yeah, that would be frustrating. And structurally, matchmaking sounds like it can be a bit rough too, dropping you into games that are already basically over or completely unbalanced. That kind of undermines that methodical teamwork you mentioned.
It absolutely can, yeah. But maybe the bigger structural issue long-term is the balance, the meta. The game is still finding its feet, weapon balance, vehicle tuning. It's unstable. Some guns, some gadgets, sometimes even whole vehicles. Remember that hovercraft issue early on that could climb walls? They feel clearly overtuned, too powerful, which means the way people play effectively changes constantly, almost week to week as patches come out. You're adapting to the developer's fixes as much as you're mastering the game itself.
That brings up a broader point about modern gaming, maybe.
Yeah.
Are we essentially paying full price now for these amazing, huge experiences that are also kind of inherently still works in progress at launch?
It increasingly feels that way, doesn't it? That need for constant updates, balance patches. It seems baked into the AAA multiplayer model now. Players almost have to go in expecting those occasional rough edges, as the review puts it, and accept that the game they buy on day one might feel quite different and hopefully better 6 months later. It's almost the cost of entry for playing these cutting-edge, massive games right when they release.
Okay, so let's wrap up this deep dive. What's the final word for our listener considering jumping in? Despite those issues with polish, with balance, the overall verdict seems clear when it all lines up, when it works. The experience is consistently described as exhilarating. It captures that core Battlefield magic, the huge chaos, but needing smart tactics to win.
That really is the key takeaway, I think. Battlefield 6 on the PS5 uses that next-gen power to deliver the scale fans wanted. It's ambitious, it demands coordination, and that makes it feel genuinely different from the faster, more solo-focused shooters out there. Victory really does require strategy and teamwork, not just lightning reflexes.
So we've landed on it being a thrilling, ambitious shooter where teamwork is paramount. But let's leave you, the listener, with one final thought to chew on as you think about diving into that massive battlefield.
Yeah, think about this. We talked about how the game's balance is constantly shifting, needing patches for bugs, for overtuned weapons, for technical hiccups. Now, consider the sheer complexity: 128 players, dynamic weather, huge destructible maps, all the vehicles. Is it even realistically possible anymore for developers to launch something this massive, this complex, in a state that feels truly finished and perfectly balanced from day one?
Oh.
Or has the very ambition of these modern digital war zones kind of outpaced the ability to release a truly polished, stable product right out of the gate? It's something interesting to consider about where game development is heading.